Our guest today is the chairman of ChicagoNEXT, Mayor Emanuel's Council on Innovation and Technology. He is one of the pioneers of early-stage technology investing in Chicago. Our guest today founded the Digital Co-working Startup Center, 1871, located in the Merchandise Mart. He is one of the nation's leading philanthropists in the area of early childhood development. Our guest today also led the campaign to build the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center. He lives in Chicago with his wife, MK. MK, where are you here? MK, where oh, there we go. Stand up. He's like the rest of my friends. He married up significantly. Thank you for being with us. He lives in Chicago with his wife, MK, and their two beautiful children, Donnie and Teddy. Ladies and gentlemen, J.B. Pritzker. J.B.? All right, have some fun up there.
Thank you very much, Jay. By the way, great name, Jay. Good job. It is a real pleasure to be here. I understood that usually people come here to the City Club to announce that they're running for public office. And I've been paying close attention to the news and to current events and candidates and to existing and former office holders. And, well, it seems like to be a credible candidate in Illinois, you have to be involved in some kind of scandal. So before I announce, I'm looking for a good scandal. So if any of you know of any, I learned this morning that the job of Pope is available. I'm not sure I'm qualified. It's been about 2,000 years since there was a Jewish Pope. It might be about time. So instead, I was invited to speak to you today about ChicagoNEXT. ChicagoNEXT, for those of you who haven't paid attention, is the Mayor's Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And so I want to start out talking about technology. And when we talk about it, I want to be clear and make sure our terminology is correct. It's not all the same. All technology is not the same. And ChicagoNEXT recognizes that fact. I'm no expert at clean tech, like Michael Polsky, who's at Invenergy and here today, and Sonny Garg from Exelon, who I understand is here today. And they run our clean tech subcommittee at ChicagoNEXT. Nor do I really know much about biotechnology, bioscience. And so thank goodness we have a terrific head of our bioscience subcommittee, Jeff Aronin. Having built New World Ventures, which is focused on early stage technology investing and particularly in digital companies, it's maybe appropriate for me to describe what my experience with technology has been, and then we move on from there. It has certainly informed my views, and it's appropriate maybe to give you some historical context about the digital technology scene here in Chicago, to see how far we've come and how exciting the opportunity is broadly in technology for Chicago. When I started in venture capital in 1995, the technology community here was really tiny. There were very few venture capitalists, almost no angel investors. There were some entrepreneurs. I can only think of one at the moment, Howard Tullman, that really has persevered. Not very many talented engineers and developers in town, and overall, frankly, very little in the way of a startup ecosystem. There was a very real divide that existed between the substantial business community of Chicago and the startup tech community. They were sort of commonly referred to by the big guys as, you know, those little entrepreneurs in the corner over there who are playing around with something like the internets. As a result, entrepreneurs who wanted to build their businesses, who were from Chicago, who had developed something here, would often move to the coasts to find talent, to find money. Just think of companies like Netscape. Just think of YouTube and PayPal, to name just a few. Since those early days, we've been trying to build community here. So many people involved. I mentioned Howard Tullman. So many people in this room, too, have been involved in building, inch by inch, the landscape of the ecosystem here. We began a while ago building the Illinois Venture Capital Association, which is an association of professionals in the venture capital world, and really designed to support the idea in Illinois that investing in companies by independent financial entities is good. That's something that seemed somewhat foreign in Springfield. It has become really the leading regional advocate for investing in startups as well as in later stage companies. We also created, of course, the Chicagoland Entrepreneurial Center to help new business startups find mentors and to find customers. It was an outgrowth of the Chicagoland Chamber. So it seemed like the perfect marriage, startups and big companies. And the Chicagoland Entrepreneurial Center, though separate from the Chamber today, has become really the leading advocate for entrepreneurs in Chicago. 6 years ago, with the Illinois Department of Commerce and with Jack Lavin, who's sitting here, we created the Illinois Innovation Accelerator Fund, the I2A Fund. It was really the first sustainable seed fund supporting capital needs of startup entrepreneurs. There was nothing like it. There was nothing that existed that you could, you know, literally pick up the phone, call, and have an idea whether you had a shot at getting seed early angel money. And because of the state and because of a bunch of investors who had, you know, had the civic good of the city in mind, the I2A fund got created. Angel and seed funding, of course, now has cropped up all over the place. And so we now have angel investment groups out of universities, Hyde Park Angels, Wildcat Angels, Irish Angels, the Harvard Business School Angels. And then there are others like Cornerstone Angels and Heartland Angels. And then a bunch of CEOs, successful technology CEOs in the city who had created their own wealth, got together and created the Firestarter Fund, which is a group of them who fund smaller startups and frankly act as mentors for those companies. Hyde Park Venture Partners, which was an outgrowth of Hyde Park Angels. Even institutional venture capital firms like New World Ventures and OCA and Lightbank, which all of us traditionally invested in early stage, which is the next stage, really institutional stage investing, decided that we're all going to reach down and invest in the true startups, the companies that, you know, a strong wind could blow away. But very, very important because that's the beginning of the life cycle and the seeds, literally, that create opportunity. And now we come to the most important ingredient of a great ecosystem, and that's serial entrepreneurs. Now, many of you might not have thought that is the ingredient that really makes it go, but it is. Many of the founders of the early technology companies here have gone on to build other companies, and successful ones. And the cadre of second and third time entrepreneurs, and you've heard their names sometimes, Matt Moog and Eric Lefkofsky and Eric Lunt at BrightTag, can easily attract talent and capital for their new companies, and they also mentor and fund first-time business builders. Serial entrepreneurs generally became the leaders, they become the leaders of a burgeoning ecosystem. They are the critical ingredient. And they come out of the companies that you've all heard of now, but which 10 or 15 years ago you might not have known. Options Express, FeedBurner, Groupon, Tickets Now, SPSS, CDW, Orbitz, Archipelago, Career Builder, and Redbox, just to name a few. Last year, here in Chicago, we opened 1871. It's a 50,000 square foot co-working space, and it's a center for digital startups located right here at the Merchandise Mart. 1871 also, importantly, houses offices for 4 universities and 2 business accelerators, and there are 8 investment groups that have offices in there and a presence. And in its first 8 months of existence under Kevin Willer, 1871 has become home to more than 200 startup companies, and it's welcomed more than 10,000 visitors. Among those visitors, some of you may have read, are the Prime Minister of Britain, who came to talk about the development of his ecosystem in London. Of course, the CEO of Twitter, the founder of Sun Microsystems was just there, and shortly, very shortly, Steve Ballmer will be coming to 1871 to talk to our entrepreneurs. 1871 is also the permanent office of some very highly regarded founders of OpenTable and SurePayroll and the CEO of Match.com. They live there, they work there, they work with the entrepreneurs that are in there, and they're training them how to build their companies. So the essential pieces of the digital startup ecosystem are already here. They've been built. Some people think it's been overnight, but it hasn't. It's taken 15 years. But someone once described it as the 15-year overnight success. We are getting there for sure. Mentors, customers, capital, investor advocates, serial entrepreneurs, and a place to build digital startups. The effect of it is very clear. Nearly 200 startups launched in Chicago in 2012 alone. Now, that's kind of an amazing number. Out of that, 59 companies each raised $1 million or more from angel investors and venture capitalists. 26 companies were acquired, and 1 went public, realizing nearly $1 billion in total value. That happened in 2012. So let's stop and think about that for a second, just so we keep those totals in perspective. In 2007, there were only 18 new companies created. 200 this year. And only 21 startups received funding, totaling only $117 million 5 years ago. $1 billion today. So in just 5 years, we've seen the number of companies created increase by 10-fold, just 5 years. And the amount of capital funding into new digital companies has tripled. For the first time, Silicon Valley VCs are paying attention to Chicago. In 2012 alone, more than 50 venture capital firms from outside of Chicago invested in local digital companies. And in those same 5 years, Chicago has homegrown some very significant market leaders in the tech space. More than just Groupon, which is certainly on everybody's minds. But there's Grubhub, which is said to be going public later this year. Mu Sigma, Braintree, CleverSafe, Sittercity, GoHealth, Centro, and you get the idea. All of them have raised rounds of capital in excess of $25 million and are collectively employing thousands of Chicagoans, including recent graduates from our universities. Now, if you're thinking, gee, I remember Divine Interventures, then put that out of your mind, because the companies that were being created 13 years ago and 14 years ago in the bubble, those companies weren't focused on profitability. You know, one thing about Chicagoans is down to earth, focused on the right things. And the bubble got a few people out of control with their investing, no doubt about it, and startups with the idea that, you remember the new economy, where revenue and profits don't matter. But you know, today in Chicago, revenue and profits really matter. And those companies whose names I just read off to you, they're focused on that. How do we get to profitability? And by the way, they recognize as startup entrepreneurs that they get diluted if they don't get to profitability soon. All signs indicate that the digital startup community in Chicago is headed in the right direction to become a major economic engine for the future of the city. Remember, that's just one segment of high technology, digital technology, that we have the potential to build here. And even it has unfinished business about building its ecosystem and reaching its potential. So what about the rest? This is the challenge that Mayor Emanuel has put in front of us. This is the reason for ChicagoNEXT. The mayor is focused on the tech community as a long-term driver for economic growth in Chicago. Since taking office, as you may have noticed, he has devoted much of his attention to entrepreneurship and innovation in Chicago. And he's coined the phrase about Chicago, which is being repeated, that we are Startup City. So when the mayor and Michael Sachs and Glenn Tilton were putting together Chicago's plan for economic growth and jobs, along with the terrific committee that included Kevin Willer, they made innovation one of their key pillars of economic development. And to formulate and implement a plan to build on that, they asked me to be the chairman of ChicagoNEXT, and they have, along with me, co-leading the group, Eric Lefkowski and Jeff Aronin and Pat Ryan Jr. And in addition, as I mentioned, the leaders of those sectors that ChicagoNEXT is focused on. So digital technology, clean tech, bioscience. Each of these focus industries are noticeably at different stages in their development. In the clean tech space, the Chicago area, believe it or not, has over 750 clean tech businesses, with more than 250 of those located in Chicago. Companies like Invenergy, Socor, and Great Point Energy, all forging successful paths in the world of renewables, biofuels, and other advanced energy. The Department of Energy, some of you may have read, announced a $120 million award to Argonne. This is key, to create a Manhattan-style project for energy storage research, which will make Chicago the world leader in advanced battery research and development. Very important for the future of Chicago. If you want to know what's going on in Chicago in the clean tech startup space, visit the Clean Energy Trust, led by Amy Francetic, which has emerged in the last few years as the dynamic center of this nascent effort. There's much more groundwork to lay, and the industry itself faces notable challenges across legislative and policy boundaries that are really not solved overnight. ChicagoNEXT will focus on the increasing opportunities for new company formation and the expansion of established clean tech businesses. In bioscience, the playing field, very different. Chicago has the third largest healthcare economy in the country and more than 500,000 employees in it. We have world-leading pharmaceutical, medical device, and diagnostic companies like Abbott and AbbVie and Baxter and Takeda. We have world-class teaching hospitals and research universities, some of them whose presidents are represented here today. So important is Chicago in bioscience that for the third time in 10 years, we're going to be host to the world's largest and most important bioscience convention called Bio 2013, coming up. But despite the economic strength of the healthcare industry here, there's almost no early stage company formation and growth. It's strange. Almost none of the startup ecosystem that I described in the digital space exists in bioscience in Chicago. We have greatness at both ends of the spectrum in bioscience research and big companies, but we don't have the institutional mechanisms and funding in place to systematically translate cutting-edge research that we know is going on at the universities and at the laboratories into high-growth companies and leverage the vast healthcare talent and industry that we have here already. Fortunately, we have Jeff Aronin leading the bioscience subcommittee. He built a very successful pharma company himself called Ovation and is at it again building Paragon Pharmaceutical. And he's committed to helping to build this ecosystem here in Chicago. ChicagoNEXT will be right there with him. One major theme that ChicagoNEXT aims to address, a theme that is pervasive across the arc of all three of our areas of focus, is the relentless drive to attract and retain talent. Last fall, the mayor and about 50 leaders in Chicago headed down to U of I's College of Computer Science in Urbana in an ongoing effort with ChicagoNEXT to bring visibility to the really great opportunities in Chicago and to help stop the exodus of one of our greatest troves of engineering talent to the coasts at University of Illinois. And now there's a significant effort being put together to build UI Labs, which will be a center of excellence gathering the University of Illinois and all of our universities in some fashion to garner the best technologists in the world for Chicago. After the Obama presidential campaign brought to Chicago almost 100 software developers and engineers, 1871, led by Kevin, became the home to those technologists, and they're really terrific. They moved in there, and some of the great tech talents of today are successfully now working at 1871, thinking about what their next opportunity is, what business they want to build, and they're doing it here in Chicago. They came from elsewhere, and they're doing it here. And ChicagoNEXT intends to continue promoting the attraction and retention message across the Big Ten to all the centers of engineering and business excellence on both coasts. Make no mistake, all of these industries are in a war for talent, and Chicago must continue to bring its A game in order to compete. It is this sense of community and shared vision that now more than ever needs to drive us beyond just the virtual world. We need to continue to play to our strengths as a city. We have one of the most powerful and diversified business and industrial sectors in the country, if not in the world. And all of our great companies are filled to the brim with mentors and advisors, customers, and capital. Square in the middle between the entrepreneurs and the Fortune 500 businesses all around us lays the secret ingredient that gives Chicago its potential edge. It's the bridging of the relationship between the startups and our established businesses that will be the catalyst for turning us into one of the great hubs of innovation and entrepreneurship. And this is what I want to call on you today for. This is frankly what Mayor Emanuel calls on us collectively for. Seek out opportunities to work with startups. Look for innovative ideas to share with your respective worlds, whether they're in finance or healthcare, transportation, government, or beyond. Not because it's something you feel like you're supposed to do or some charitable endeavor, but because it's something that will help your business grow and succeed. By definition, startups are not constrained by the limits of established company culture. And so they push boundaries and develop new technologies and ways of doing things. You should think of them as your R&D. They're very inexpensive R&D that's freed from the shackles of your corporate bureaucracy. These new companies are looking for customers to help them build their products, and most of the companies are looking for ways to innovate and differentiate their businesses. So go visit 1871 and meet the entrepreneurs. Become an online community member at builtinchicago.org. Join the Illinois Technology Association. Go to cleanenergytrust.org to learn about technology in the clean tech space. Visit iBio to learn what's going on in bioscience. And do it for the startups, do it not for the startups, and do it not even for Chicago, not for the mayor, not for me. Do it because it's good for your business and because you'll make more money doing it. And if that isn't incentive enough, then go ahead, do it for Chicago. and by the way, it's a lot of fun working with passionate founders of businesses. I mean, a lot of fun, and I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks for having me here today.
If you have questions, there are a little on your table, it's official question forms. Just raise your hand, and they'll be passing to picking them up. We have, okay, yes, there we go. Thornton. And while this is going on, just remember history. In the 1848 to 1890, Chicago was the revolutionary capitalistic city in America. Many things, from Pullman cars to marketing, commerce, all those things. All those people who have names on streets, this was the place to go to make money. Wasn't always pretty. Well, it's not an official card, but it's from Mark Waymiller, who does have tremendous clout. Will Illinois' financial mess of taxes, old pension, and pension mess scare future small business here? Mr. Massell, you're on the on-deck circle on that one.
This isn't going to be an attractive answer to some of you, but no.
When you get initials for your first name, you get quick answers. Okay. Jack, any more out there? JB, you left him stunned. How about a big round of applause for Mr. Pritzker?